I feel great, Meher. There is no day when I don't, like, I mean, you know this, right? Running a business is hard. There's a team to manage. There's resources to manage. There are bills to pay and things to organize. And it's a massive task. There's not a second of my day that I'm not thinking about the Hive. But there is, and while there are days when I doubt, am I doing this well enough? Could I be doing it better? Should I be, treating this issue differently? There is never any doubt in my mind about why. Like, my intent with this space is crystal clear. I know that the work we do is, call it God's work, call it divine work, call it work that changes the world. It's crystal clear to me. It's like, it is crystal clear that the work we do changes lives, and I've seen it firsthand. So I'm...
Hello and welcome to the Come Alive podcast. I'm your host Meher Chandani, and today I have with me a very energetic guest. Her energy is contagious as soon as she enters the room. So she began her career in Dubai in 2008 as the host of City 1016 primetime breakfast show. During her 12-year radio career, she spoke to millions of listeners, hosted thousands at concerts, and was associated with several local and international brands. Her passion for public speaking and sharing ideas led her to give a TEDx talk titled 7 Ways to Make Conversation with Anyone. This is one of the most watched TEDx talks in the world with over 22 million views. She was also named Khaleej Times Woman of Substance in 2019 and now writes a culture and city pulse column for Weekend magazine. She quit radio in 2019 to become a full-time drama educator and entrepreneur who owns and manages the Hive, a performing arts school in UAE. She is none other than Malavika, Varadan, who is deeply committed to passing on her love for theatre and public speaking to next generation and empowering a community of young minds to speak up and be heard. She believes in cultivating culture from ground up and sees Dubai as a culture hub in the future. Welcome, Malavika. I'm super excited to have you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Meher, and I'm so proud of what you created here. It's so lovely. In this little corner, you've just made it really, literally come alive.
Thank you so much. So of course we've met before and it was beautiful then. Your energy is contagious, as I mentioned. And
Thank you.
You're passing on this energy now to millions. So I want to definitely hear your story, but I want you to tell us about your early beginnings. What got you to Dubai and what got you to the radio?
Okay, so I started out my radio career in Bangalore, and I was presented on a radio station in Bangalore called Radio City, and then I moved on to another one called Radio Indigo, and I was playing this international music in a little Bangalore radio station. And then I heard that this company called the Arabian Radio Network was looking for presenters, and I thought, okay, somebody asked me whether I would like to do an audition, and I did. Not thinking much of it, and honestly, like everybody else who comes to Dubai, my thought was, chalo, if I get the job, I'll go there, I'll spend a year at most, I'll have an international brand on my CV, and then I'll come back and do something else. And my focus was never actually to be in radio for the long run. I was planning to become an economist, and I had applied to business school, and I was a complete economic statistics math nerd. Okay, like I'm super into numbers. But, certain things happened and like life kind of changed. I applied to a business school that rejected me, and I was just completely shocked. I was like, oh my God, they said no, now what? So I decided to continue with radio, and then City 1016 came along and the audition came along and I got through. So I moved here in 2008, which was a very different time in Dubai and in radio. And yeah, there's been no turning back since. So when I joined City 1016, I had joined as a weekend breakfast presenter, and that's not really when you have the highest listenership, right?
Yeah.
In those days, it was Friday and Saturday mornings, and the roads would be completely empty.
Yes.
And then, things happened, and I moved up the ladder, so to speak. And in a year and a half, I think, I was doing the breakfast show. And there was just no turning back from there. It was a good 11-year run on breakfast, and It was incredible to be working with the single most powerful radio network in the
Yes.
city, to be working with a brand like City 1016, because like every Bollywood star, every big brand, every big show, there was literally nothing that one could ask for that was not delivered to you,
I
in your
remember,
lap. So
yes.
it was just the most incredible place to work. And that was the journey with radio. And along with radio, of course, came television. There were TV shows on the side. There were brand endorsements. There were concerts. There were literally, what can you think of wanting to do as a presenter? It was all there and laid out for you. So it was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, I remember. I think the entire team were like stars. They were like everywhere, and they were like promoting such amazing things. And the energy that you had along with your team was fantastic. I remember. I think I used to follow that more also when I was in the fashion line.
Yeah.
So now I've also been a little bit out of it, but of course I remember, and it was really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
So well done on that. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a beautiful journey, and I worked with some incredible talent and fantastic leadership. And great ideas. And I think there were a lot of things happening in media at the time, social. When in 2008, I remember doing the first ever Facebook campaign, and then us transitioning into Instagram, and then figuring out how to be on social media and coverage and photographs and videos. And suddenly, what used to be, the idea of in pre-2008, you could come to a radio station in your pajamas and nobody cared, right? But all of a sudden, your face was on billboards and TV screens and in theaters. And I actually was part of radio at a time when it made that transition. And for that, I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it was like disruption phase, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. At its peak.
Yeah. Wow. So what did radio teach you? I want to know, because this show is about the learning, about evolution, and of course I've seen you evolve so much during these years.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that time. What were you learning?
I learned becoming? So much. I think being in live radio is a little bit like being in an emergency room, right? Because your mic is live. And you are literally coming alive, right?
Correct.
So there is no room for the kind of energy that you share with co-hosts or with people on the show. You're thinking on the ball all the time. You are constantly moving. You switch the mic off. You've got another 6 minutes before you speak again, and then 6 minutes before you speak again. There are no retakes. There's no, I did that badly, I want to do it again. You're constantly up and on, and you create
your
a synergy
best self always,
all the time. And there's a kind of synergy, I think, that builds teams that I was witness to in the radio studios, right? So how do you build that synergy, that camaraderie between co-hosts? I think that was one of my very, very big learnings. The other thing I realized is that when you work on radio, you may be talking to Shah Rukh Khan one day, you may be talking to the CEO of a company the next day, and you're simultaneously talking to a cab driver, to somebody who's just moved into Dubai with,
correct,
with a starting salary. You're also talking to a child, you're also talking to an older person. You build an ability to make connections with human beings, right? And you tap into like a common denominator no matter who you're talking to. And I think that to me was the greatest gift that radio taught me.
Wow.
Like you can go into an elevator and in 30 seconds you've made a connection with someone, right? And they feel like, hey, it feels like I'm your friend. It feels like I know you, and that's a beautiful thing that radio gives you.
Yeah.
I think so, for sure.
Wow.
For sure. And of course, not to take away from the brand that it built for me, I think a lot of what I do today is because of the 10 years that I spent building that brand within City, right? A lot of the trust, a lot about what people know of me and why they trust me with the most valuable thing in their lives are their children, right? And the fact that parents come to me and say, look, I trust you. Here's my daughter, here's my son, you do what you've got to do. That to me is the greatest thing that radio gave me, that trust.
That's amazing. Yeah, and like they say that in any business, you are the product, right? It's not about what you're selling. It's about who
is selling it. Yeah.
Who's selling it, exactly. So
yeah.
I think with Hive, that's what's happened with you, because I've been hearing such amazing things about Hive, I can't tell you. So tell us about that journey. What made you actually then let go or leave this beautiful career and move into something that you're so passionate about, but also take that leap of faith and have that courage to be able to do that?
It was, I recognize it now that it was a leap of faith. At the time, I didn't think that it was so brave. I mean, people around me were telling me that, like, are you crazy? Who gives up a job at City? Like, nobody does that. Nobody walks out of a breakfast show. You know, it's literally the most privileged position one can have. You've got fame, you've got money, you've got, you know, people know your name, you've got the privilege of being able to walk through any door that you want in the city. But I think somewhere deep inside, I felt like radio had taught me what it needed to teach me. And I wasn't learning as much every day. And the things that I was now learning were not what I was. There was a part of me that wanted to do something that would truly challenge me, you know, something where I felt like while the impact on radio was wide, I wanted to make an impact that was deeper. So no more did it appeal to me that, chalo, 100,000 in a stadium, 200,000 in a stadium, 800,000. I mean, it's that the growth of that number stopped meaning what it used to me. And fame was not giving me as much of a kick as
You
it
grew
used
out
to.
of it, I
grew out of it, yeah. I think I grew out of it with and
of
I
course,
say that
respect,
with
yes,
respect and
yes,
grace
yes.
and just, you know, tremendous gratitude. But I just felt like, you know, when I walked into a classroom and I was working with a bunch of kids, some days, I remember this distinctly. We were doing a Shah Rukh Khan promotion on one day and I had to miss a class. And my heart was like, I really want to go to that class. I really want to be with my kids right now, but I have to be here on stage and do this concert. And in that moment, I knew that that's where my heart was, you know, like if something as big as this that people would literally die for is not giving me this as much of joy as being in a class with my children, then something, that's my heart telling me something, right? It's time to make a transition, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did.
That's
it came
beautiful.
at the right time. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Hive. What is it exactly, and what do you do, and you know what made you do that?
Okay, so the Hive is a drama and public speaking school for kids. It started in 2014. It was started by two friends of mine. And I used to teach there for a few hours of the week. And there came a point where they wanted to move to Canada. And so because they were moving out, they were looking for people to buy the business. That was the same time when I was having this thing of like, maybe I should look at some other options. Maybe I should study. Maybe I should step out of radio. Maybe I've had my share. And so I dared to kind of put my hand up and say, hey, do you think I could buy over the business? And so I did. And that's how my journey with the Hive began. We were at about 150 to 200 students at that time. We're now at 700 students. We're across 6 different schools. We touch thousands of lives. We have one of the largest theatre festivals in the region. Last year in our theatre festival, we had 5,000 people watch plays. 5,000.
Wow, I didn't know about this. Where did you
Crazy,
hold
right?
This? Yeah. Where did you hold this, and how do you do this theatre festival?
It's amazing. It happens at the Zabil Ladies Club, and it happened in June of last year. We had 300 actors. It was
from your school.
From my school, yeah.
Wow.
So all of these kids going up on stage and you know, presenting their work, and it was so beautiful to see kids feel like, you know, there's something about teaching children theatre that when they go up and they do that show, their shoulders change, you know?
Yeah.
It's like they just, after that, they walk off stage with their posture different. Their shoulders are back and their heads up. And they just feel like, I've got this, you know, I can do this. And I think that to me is one of the most beautiful things about the Hive, because the kids who come to us and learn drama and public speaking go back into their schools and they realize suddenly that like, wow, I can audition for stuff. Like, I can put my hand up. I can be school prefect. I could teach leadership.
Confidence in children, which is so important in today's time.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yesterday, in fact, I was driving one of my kids home, and he said to me, you know, I did a Harvard leadership conference, and I just realized in that moment that I was in a team where everybody was super smart, but they just didn't have the words to express themselves. So I taught them public speaking, and they taught me plastic pollution. And together we were an unstoppable team because I was able to give them the missing piece of the puzzle. Beautiful. Because they had all of this science, all of this knowledge, all of this data, but they didn't have the ability to go up and present it in a way that moves an audience. And when they presented, it was like different, right? So I think that's the beauty of what Hive does. We
Amazing.
empower kids to, go out there and own a stage and walk into a room and literally own it.
And that's so important because public speaking, as you may know, is the second world's biggest fear. Like
Yeah, 73% of the world is afraid of public
speaking. Yeah. So being able to contribute to, I feel, dissolving that belief or helping children reprogram that belief is really amazing. How do you feel about it?
I feel great, Meher. There is no day when I don't, you know this, right? Running a business is hard. There's a team to manage. There's resources to manage. There are bills to pay and things to organize. And it's a massive task. There's not a second of my day that I'm not thinking about the Hive. But while there are days when I doubt, am I doing this well enough? Could I be doing it better? Or should I be, treating this issue differently? There is never any doubt in my mind about why. Like, my intent with this space is crystal clear. When I walk into that room, I know that the work we do is, call it God's work, call it divine work, call it work that changes the world.
Creating impact in these little children.
It's crystal clear to me. It's like, it is crystal clear that the work we do changes lives, and I've seen it firsthand. So I'm
So you're living your purpose, I want to say.
Oh yeah, and then some. and then some. Yeah.
I can feel it. Your energy says it all, that you're living your purpose and you're so passionate about this. And I feel when we live our purpose, we feel magic in life, right?
Yeah.
Like when you are actually living your purpose, you feel magic and you can give it all that you have.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you are always in conflict, like, what am I supposed to do? But when you live your purpose and when you felt that, you can feel the magic, and the power and authenticity that comes from you is phenomenal. And I think everybody can see that. And that's why I keep hearing such good things about the Hive and you all the time.
Meher. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love what I do. I love how we do it. I love why we do it. I love who we do it with. I love the team. I love the synergy that we've built. I love the way we complete each other. I love the way we are open to the vibe that, every time a person walks into the Hive and they say, my God, this place is so warm. It's got such a great vibe. My heart swells with pride. And every time a child says that, Hive, how do I describe it? The other day we were doing a radio interview and one of my kids got asked, so what does the Hive mean to you? And he said, Hive is like a second home. I just belong when I walk in the door. And that to me is what the Hive is about. Like, the drama and the public speaking and creating world leaders and all that is an aside, right? That is the real work that we do. We give them a place where it feels like home, but better.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So tell us about your personal journey. How have you evolved from then to now? It's been like so many years.
Wow.
You've had two successful careers or whatever, both have been very successful for you.
Yeah.
So how do you feel, and how have you evolved? What have your learnings been?
My learnings have been many, and I think, the world of Instagram is such that your successes are spoken of more than your challenges. It's come with its set of challenges, right? I think...
So what have been, we can start with that, what have been your biggest challenges and how did you overcome them?
I think in radio, one of my greatest challenges was I always felt, and I still feel like I was a misfit who got away with a very long career. So I was never a Bollywood fan. So I didn't know the difference between Dharmendra and Jitendra when I walked into City 1016. I had not followed any Bollywood. I'd maybe watched like 4 Mani Ratnam films. As a Tamilian girl born and raised in Bangalore, I knew very, very little about Bollywood. I'm not a fluent Hindi speaker either. I'm very cautious about the way I use Hindi because I get super conscious that I'm getting it wrong.
City 1016 was fully Hindi?
It's a fully Hindi station.
Okay, wow.
So those things were like, I always felt like I'm a bit of a misfit. I'm not one of those like flashy people, and my mother never owned a lipstick in her whole life. We come from a publishing family. We're like typical middle class Tamilian household, and here I was being thrown into this Bollywood world with high heels and big names and like all this like jazz, and I kind of had to learn it along the way, right? So I think those were the challenges of radio. And with entrepreneurship, I think it's been a very, very empowering journey. I don't think I'm the same woman I was in 2019, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what we've built, because I think it's hard, isn't it? Like you've got to build something, and in the
course.
process, you have to draw certain boundaries, and you have to
Of
say yes
course.
when you mean yes and no when you mean no, and that can, that can sever relationships, and that can, make people feel like, what was that about? Because especially think about like coming from an entertainment background, you always are a people pleaser, right? You want nothing more than for
So
people to
people
say,
yeah,
she's so
absolutely.
nice, she's so kind, she's so this, she's so that. But then, you can't run a business like that, and definitely not one that means this much to you. I think finding the right people, keeping the right people, fostering relationships, building trust, and yet being able to draw boundaries, understanding money. These are things that I had to like learn along the way, and I'm glad for the lessons that I've learned in the journey.
That's beautiful.
Finding
So you-
balance.
Yeah, finding
you know,
balance to say
that's
no,
one.
to also stand up, I would say, right? Like you would have to stand up and say no to some things if you didn't want it that way as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. But like you said, as a presenter, you probably have to just go with the flow and just be okay with everything
And say yes, and oh my god, and then you leave, right? But because as a presenter, you're just the face of it. You're not really cracking the deal. You're not really
Yeah.
signing the contract, right? So yeah, that's definitely been one of the big journeys.
So
I think.
now has entrepreneurship made you more stronger as a
Oof.
internal? Yeah.
Absolutely, I am not the same woman I was in 2018. It's like I'm a completely different person. I'm a completely different
So that's
person.
growth and progress as evolution, right?
Absolutely.
As a human.
And that was great when
That
that happened, and this is great now.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like there's a lot more authenticity in what I'm doing now than there ever was.
So did you discover yourself more along being an entrepreneur? Like they say, of course, we also evolve. But what about your values? Like, what are the values you hold close to your heart as an entrepreneur now?
I think some things that really define the way that I make choices as an entrepreneur is that something changed in me around the COVID time, and I'm sure it happened to you as well. I just suddenly became super aware of the fact that I have very, very finite time and energy. And I'm only going to work on projects that mean something to me, right? Like, yes, it might be a great project, and maybe there'll be other people out there who'd kill to have it. But I'm only going to do it if it means something to me, if it fits my purpose, if it fits my vision, if it fits what I believe in, then I will contribute my energy and my time to it. Otherwise, I'm going to let it go. And that's a hard one. That's a really, really hard one to do. But I think that's something that kind of
So that
defines
came to
me.
me when I started my journey of Come Alive.
Yeah.
The 5-phase process of so I talk about the 5-phase process of self-love in Come Alive, the book.
Yeah.
And when I started to understand myself, I was able to say no to things. I was able to understand that I will only do things which fit my purpose, which fit my values. And so what is your take on self-love as it comes with this answer of yours? What's your take on self-love?
The word self-love is used so much that I think sometimes Instagram has made it like a face mask and a pedicure, which it really isn't.
No, absolutely not.
It
Yes.
isn't. I think I have learned that self-love is really about drawing boundaries. That I love what I do and what I stand for so much that I'm not going to allow you to overstep certain boundaries. And that's I think that's a learning for me every day. I haven't mastered it. I still struggle with it. There are still some places where I've been able to draw those boundaries, and some places where I continue to struggle. But it is a daily effort, I think, and that's what, to me, self-love is all about. It's about being able to say, okay, no, this works for me and this does not work for me, so I'm going to let this go.
So do you have any practices to connect with yourself and to know yourself? Like it seems that you have really now known yourself more in this journey. I think from the transition from radio to entrepreneurship has taught you a lot of things. So in the midst of this, did you get to learn more about yourself, and how did you do that?
What are my practices? Okay, so I do meditate often. It's something that I work into my practice of every day. I've always found that whenever I'm very, very lost in life and I'm really down the dumps, the one thing that brings me back is it's always through my body, right? I think a physical practice, whether that is to get up every morning and go for a run, or whether it is to do yoga regularly, or whether it is to, I don't know, climb stairs. I'm training for Kilimanjaro at the end of the month.
Yes, I saw that on Instagram. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. But I feel there is something to be said for the physical practice of committing a certain amount of time to your body. And for me, that 1 hour or that 1.5 hours in the day is what is my space and time to say that I value the vehicle that makes everything else in my life possible.
That's so well said. I love it.
Thank you.
And that is true. Health is of prime importance for you to achieve anything in life.
Yeah.
So it's so important to take care of your health and your body. Like you said, it's a vehicle to take us to every place we want to go.
Yeah. And
so
it would
beautiful.
not be possible, right?
Yes.
Now tomorrow, I can't afford 3 days in this coming week. If I were to fall sick and if like stuff were to crash, imagine everything that would fall apart for the next 3 days. If I had to take 1 week out, if I had to take 1 month out, now multiply that if my body completely crashes on me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, like
you would
the
not
impact
be
that
able
would
to
have.
achieve anything in life.
Exactly.
And we'll just be wasting time. Like we said, time is so finite. We are here for a finite period. It's not infinite. And we need to make ourselves aware of this fact.
Yeah,
and that's amazing.
I think
that you're
also
so
as women, I think there's a part of us that feels like, going to the gym is such a selfish thing to do. Yeah, I have to pack dabbas and I have to send my children to school, and there are people depending on me, and my team is depending on me, and my work is depending on me. But this is my way of it's an insurance. Because if I don't take care of myself, then the team will fall apart when when this system crashes, the external system crashes too, right? So
that's so well said. I so agree with that. Yes.
I guess that's it. In a way, that is really the self-love practice.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
No, thank you.
So, tell us about what really motivates you in life. You always have this amazing energy. And of course, even in the radio times, even now, your energy is so amazing. So what motivates you in life, and how do you keep your energy so high up?
Caffeine. No.
That can't be, because
strong kadak chai.
Then everybody would be high on energy, because a lot of people consume a lot of coffee and caffeine.
No, I think I'm very ambitious about what the Hive is going to do over the next 10 years. I think we're really going to change the face of this city. I think we're building culture from the grassroots level, from the youngest minds, from the smallest neighborhoods. We are not a culture space in some kind of bougie part of the city where you have to spend 500 dirhams just to get there. We are in the neighborhood, right? And I think the fact that I get the opportunity to do that every single day that's what energizes me. But the second part of it, I think, is I come from a family that is, I think that when I was growing up, so my dad was extremely sick for 25 years. He had a stroke and he was wheelchair bound. And for the last 10 years of his life, every time I saw him, I didn't know whether it would be the last time I saw him. And there was cancer, there was multiple health problems, and he really struggled for his life for those last 10 years, right? So I think my family, my sister and I, my mom, we've grown up around this it is a very real thing to us that you don't get to stay on this planet forever, and you can't take things for granted. And in the end, there are some things that really matter, and the impact you have on people is what really matters. You're not going to take your bungalow and your Rolls Royce up with you to heaven.
Absolutely.
Not your bags and your shoes.
Yes.
What counts are the people who will come there and hold your hand when you're in time of pain. And I think it was such an integral part of my growing up, taking care of my dad and my mom, seeing the way the family functions around somebody who needs to be taken care of. I think that really built who I am as a person. So I know now that and he was an extremely positive person, right? So when you're going through that kind of pain, I don't know if you watch Tuesdays with Maury, but he was my Maury. He was looking death in the face
every day,
but did it with a massive smile and with big bravery and with the generosity of every human being who walked through the door was greeted with love and respect and kindness. And I think if he could do it, was my excuse, you know? So that's, I live
learning.
Yeah, I live as his daughter and try and carry that energy through my life.
So he was there in India and you were here. How did that make you feel? Because I know we are at that age now that our parents are aging. And a lot of my friends have parents who are back in India and they live here.
Yeah.
And they feel immense guilt. What would you like to say to such friends, that how to not feel guilty that you're not there with them 24/7?
Yeah, I think, it's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. For all the years that I, from 2008 right up to the very end, every single trip back home would be like, oh my God, is this going to be the last one? Like, am I going to have to say my final goodbye now? Will he make it? Will he not? The constant, every single day, I think every single day of my life, I made a phone call back home to speak to him. So there was no day that went without that. It's a lot of pressure. I know it is. And it can really weigh you down. But I think there's a part of me that also knew that he wanted more than anything else for my sister and I to go out and be the people who we are today, and make this impact. I know that if he walked into the Hive, his mind would be blown by what we've created. And I think that knowledge, as long as I'm doing work that aligns with who he was as a person and what
who he
meant,
wanted you to be,
and
probably.
who he wanted me
like
to be.
as because all
Yeah.
parents, like I'm a parent, so I know I have a dream, like, or kind of I have a wish for my children to be able to create that impact, to be humble, to be kind-hearted, all those things. As a parent, we always have that. So
Yeah.
so I feel that so you want to live what he wanted you to live.
Absolutely. And live by the values that he believed
values
in.
he believed.
Yes. and do work. And that's what I mean. It kind of all goes back to that. If it's not aligned with that purpose, then it's not worth my time and energy. Whether it be a relationship, a work project, something I'm doing in the space, I hold the responsibility of what I do with this energy and who I give it to and how I give it to them. And if it is not in alignment with what my parents brought me up to be and what they expect, a good person to be on this planet, then it's not really worth doing.
Yeah,
is
then
it?
then that's when you would not feel good about it. But
Yeah.
now that you were carrying what do you call it, the baton?
Yeah.
When you carry the baton forward or whatever, you pay it forward,
Yeah.
then it's all nice. And
It's a torch, right?
Yeah.
You lit the spark, and
Yeah.
now it's time for me to carry that flame.
Yes.
And then I will pass it on, and they will pass it on, and they will pass it on.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. That's so beautiful. So tell us about your, I know we spoke a lot about challenges and learnings. So tell us a little bit about the 3 biggest learnings of your entire life that you would like to pass on to the next generation.
Wow, that's really big. I think the number one big learning for me, and something that I really live my life by, is that time and energy are finite. You best be reminded of it every single morning when you wake up, that your time on this planet is finite, and what you do with that time is only, there's only so much you have. So be conscious, if nothing else, of the way you do it. And as long as your intent is aligned with, of course we all make mistakes. Of course,
Yes.
things don't go as planned. And of course, I mean, not to say there's no gray area in my life for no person I've ever hurt, but to know that I set out with the intent to do it right is what I think matters. I think that's number one. 2, I think, is, I think bravery is not talked about as much as it should be. I think that, being brave is not about waging a war and big machine guns and,
Yes.
I don't think that's what courage looks like, right? I think during COVID times, we saw this where healthcare workers and nurses who was holding hands of, people who could not meet their relatives by their bedside, that's bravery.
Yes.
To care is bravery, because you're putting your heart out there and saying that I love and I care, and I think that is bravery. And that kind of courage is the courage that the world needs more of, not this big-chested,
Yes.
I'm going to punch you bravery. That's not bravery.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
And I think that to be, to take some time to journey inward and to spend some time thinking and being alone and reflecting is so important. I think we spend so
important.
much time in our lives trying to run away from being alone, You want to fill your time with like, chalo, we'll go out for coffee, we'll go out for a drink, we'll meet friends, we'll travel here, we'll travel there.
Yes.
The only travel that really, really matters is the journey inward. Yeah. I mean, you could be doing this in Maldives or on your balcony.
Yeah.
The point is, are you spending enough time with yourself and your own thoughts and reflecting? Because otherwise you're just going through the hamster wheel of life, and you're not really taking the learning back and changing and altering and listening and reevaluating and going back to the drawing board. And what's the fun of life if you're just going to paint the same paint by numbers?
That's so well
drawing over and over again,
I so agree. And introspection and reflection is a big part of that, to be able for you to move and progress in any area of your life, and even to become a better version of yourself, we need to introspect and spend time with ourselves.
Yeah.
So well said. I want to ask you about forgiveness, because you spoke a little bit about your early days where, there was no retakes.
Yeah.
So obviously there might be times where you'll be like, oh my God, I should not have said that. Oh my God, I should have been better. Oh, today was not a good day on radio, because, there were no retakes. There is no, like, you can't do it again.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship with forgiveness?
I think it's harder to forgive yourself than it is to forgive other people. I think as women, at least, I think that's something that I've noticed. We're more willing to let other people, let it go with other people rather than forgive the things that we have done and the mistakes that we have made. And I think to be as kind to yourself as you would be to your best friend is the hardest thing,
Yes.
And maybe that's why we have female friends who we call up and who say the things that we need to hear. But if we could be those people for ourselves, imagine if we could talk to ourselves the way we talk to the people we love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine the world we could create. Right?
But do you do that with yourself now?
I try to. I try to kind of, take it back and reflect. I think I'm very hard on myself. And I think I hold myself up to some unreasonable standards sometimes, and I really, really push. I push till breaking point, and that's my thing. That's the way I've always worked and lived, and that's great for work. It's not so great for yourself. So I think that's a lesson in that I'm still learning, right? Which is to pause and to be a little more forgiving of yourself, and to just kind of let it go.
Yeah, that's so important, to let it go, because we all make mistakes and we all learn as we go along. And life is this beautiful process of learning and growing. And I feel forgiveness, especially with ourselves, is really, really major. So I just remembered when you said that, it was like there were no retakes. And in life also, there are no retakes actually, right? You just learn, you get better, and then you have to give your take back next day probably.
Yeah.
So
and hopefully life offers you enough with, when you have relationships with someone, whether that be a friendship, a parent, a child, a partner, hopefully, you say something today and you wish you hadn't said it, and hopefully you get a retake tomorrow. And there are some times when you don't get a retake tomorrow, but there should be a learning from that. There should be some reflection that makes you think about, okay, why did I say that, and why did I feel that, and what was at the core of that? And as long as we can learn something, it's not time wasted.
Absolutely, I agree. And anyways, I feel that every situation, every event, every moment, every person comes into your life to teach you something. As long as we're getting the learning, I think their work in your life is done, kind of. We've paid out the debt, or whatever you call it. They've taught you something, you've learned something, and vice versa when that happens to someone else. So that's beautiful. And I want to end with I've seen all along your journey, you've always had this beautiful energy, obviously, but also there seems to be a sense of faith in you. I want to know your relationship with faith as well.
I'm a religiously confused person.
Really?
Yeah. So I come from a pretty radical sort of family. We're not a traditional Hindu family. So we don't do any pujas or anything. In my house, Diwali was basically mithai, some crackers, and clean up the house, and that's it. So but we are an extremely spiritual family. I think
so. Spiritual is more important than being religious. I feel.
Yeah, I've always had a problem with organized religion. I genuinely don't. I find it difficult to let some I'm going to say it, let an older man in some corner of the world dictate what I will and will not do with my life. I find it hard to bite that, to swallow that truth. But I do believe in spirituality, and I do believe in questioning, and I do believe that the conversation needs to be on. And as long as my conversation with faith is on, then I'm doing something. I'm seeking, right? I am seeking the truth, and I am seeking my answers. And as long as I'm constantly learning, conversing, and educating myself with everything that happens in life, I think that is my relationship with faith.
That's beautiful. And so you mentioned that you didn't really religiously do a lot at home. So what was the spiritual aspect of that?
So my father used to belong to the Theosophist Society. So they believed in theosophy. My mother.
And what is theosophy? Sorry, I don't know.
It's a long story, but I think the names that would be recognizable are like Annie Besant. You probably remember it from a history textbook. They had a little Theosophist Society where they would like meet, and they would have talks, and they would. It was more like sort of educational, really, the coming together of the Theosophist Society. So that's what I remember from my dad's side. My mum's been a fan of like J. Krishnamurti and some of his lectures. There's always been readings of Buddhism around my house. So you'll always find a book of the Dalai Lama or, around the house at some point. Thich Nhat Hanh. These books were like always around the house. So there was always some curiosity about Buddhism. I think
so it's about being conscious, and consciousness was it was very present in your upbringing.
Yes, absolutely. I think consciousness, energy, how do we be a good person is
the most important. Yes.
I think the big question in my house. Very interestingly, so when my parents got married, they didn't want a religious ceremony, so they had like a small Arya Samaj, like 10 minutes wedding, and they had 3 readings from 3 books as their religious, as the sort of ceremonial part of their wedding. And this is like what, back in 1979?
Wow, yes.
Okay, so that was like really radical back then, right? And so I think we come from a family where you are taught to question. You're constantly taught to question, but why? But why? But why? And as long as we keep asking why, and as long as we keep that conversation going, that's God's work.
That's so beautiful and so different. I've never actually heard that, and that's so nice to be able to understand that again, that it's not about the religion, but it's about the consciousness, about being able to understand that you have to be a good person in terms of you being accountable for yourself and your own actions.
Yeah, and to be responsible for a certain energy.
Yes.
That there is something that binds us all together. There is a universal
force.
Yes. Yeah, and there is an interconnectedness of beings that, if a butterfly in Norway right now is connected to me, we're all connected in this in this universe, and I think that is as much science as it is faith.
That's beautiful. Yes.
So,
yes, absolutely. Like people are now proving everything to be more science than faith also. And that's beautiful to see them merge now finally in this world. So wow, beautiful. So what are your plans for 2023?
The plans for 2023. I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, hopefully, in the first week of February, because I lost my dad last year on the 1st of Feb. Interestingly, you asked me about the question of faith. I think in most religions there is a grieving process, right? There are certain traditions that you follow, but because we're not a very religious family, this is my way of doing some kind of ritual for his first year. So I've decided to climb a mountain. I thought it was fitting, given that he spent 25 years in a wheelchair and he would not have been able to take 2 steps in his last year. So I think that this 1 year is my way of honoring the ability to move by climbing this mountain. So that's February. We've got an incredible year coming up at the Hive, one of the largest theatre festivals in the region, I think in the world, for children. We're going to touch over 1,000 lives this year. We've got the Hive Media Lab. So my students are going to become content creators. They're going to be publishing and making podcasts and being on film, and I'm creating a whole generation of that. And personally, there's a lot There's a lot of, I think finally now the time has come when I'm setting my roots in Dubai and I'm coming to peace with the idea that I'm probably going to be a Dubaiite for the next 20 years. So, you know how there's a part of your mind that kind of always thinks, yeah, but I'm an expat and one day I'm finally going to go home, right? I finally come to that moment where I think, here's where home's going to be.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for such a wonderful and authentic conversation. And I so enjoyed it. I enjoyed connecting with you again after so many years and learning so much more about you and your deep self.
Thank you, Meher. And good luck with your book. Good luck with publishing. And good luck with getting more people to make the journey inward.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today. So I'm sure you enjoyed this amazing, energetic conversation with Malavika. And please leave us a like, comment, press the notification bell if you're watching it on YouTube, and let us always know how you like it. Share it with whoever needs to hear it. Thank you and lots of love.